desert, right? I become to myself. And next thing I was looking at in this slide is talking about what are the negatives, what are the effects of living a lonely life or being isolated from other people. And one, the research says that it does affect our physical health. And research shows that 29% of people have of people that live in loneliness or social isolation have an increased risk of heart disease. They have 32% have an increased risk of stroke, and they are also associated with high risk of depression, anxiety, and suicide. So when you live in loneliness, there's a high risk of being depressed, uh, having been anxious, and being suicidal. Also, it can cause people to become to hallucinate. When you're by yourself alone, you begin to talk to yourself, you begin to hear voices, right? And it can also lead to early early mortality, right? 30%, people die early just because they stay in isolation and don't relate to people, don't live in community, right? So one thing we need to differentiate is alone time and loneliness. They are not the same, right? They look the same, but they're not the same, right? Because someone is left in a place doesn't mean that it's lonely. It's all a matter of the state of the mind, right? There's alone and there's loneliness, right? Being alone is being physically alone, but psychologically and spiritually, you're not alone, right? If as long as your mind is connected, right? But loneliness is when you are actually not just physically. Sometimes you are lonely even in the midst of other people. So it has nothing to do with the physical presence. It's more with psychological loneliness. Because there are people that you have friends, but yet you still feel alone. You are in the midst of a crowd where you feel alone, right? So it's a mind game. It's the way your mind feels. Is you not being seen, or you have a feeling that nobody's seeing you, nobody's recognizing you, nobody's connected to you. You're not connected to anyone. That is what loneliness really is. It has nothing to do with physical presence, because you can be in a crowd of people that love you, but yet you feel like you are alone, because somehow you have not connected yourself to them for whatever reason or the other. Some of the things we've spoken about, because to connect yourself, and we'll talk about that more as we close, you have to take that step. You have to open yourself. You have to be vulnerable, right? You have to be naked. You have to take the risk, because if you stay alone and not open yourself, you will not be connected, right? And yeah, so some of the positives to being alone and not lonely, because we also need, it's not every time you want to be with people, especially if you're an introvert, different between introvert, extrovert. Extrovert gets his energy with people, introvert gets their energy alone, right? So depending on which you are, whether you are introverted or extroverted, it's the question is, where do you get your energy from?
Right.
An introverted person can only stay in a crowd for so long. They need to go recharge on their own. Extroverted person can only stay alone for so long. They need to go and get energy with people. So yeah, so there is a time, a quality of time we need to spend alone, just to clarify our senses and of direction. And the positives that come with spending time in solitude include, it helps to build our mental strength. We're able to gain our sense of direction, sense of who we are, and that leads to happiness, better life satisfaction, and we're able to manage stress more because we have things put in their proper place, and it reduces our chance of depression, right?
Right.
So when we talk about loneliness, that it relates to our personality. Some personalities easily lead to loneliness, right? And when you are lonely also, it can also change your personality also. So it can go, either way, right?
Yeah.
It's the
Right.
same. question which comes first, the chicken or the egg. The chicken will lay the egg will hatch the chicken. It all depends on where you want to take it from. If you're a quiet personality, don't want to rock the boat, you know, you don't step out and take risk, you'll most probably be lonely, because if you're not vulnerable, then people cannot relate with you. People cannot go into deep relationship with you. Everything will be on the surface. So you can have people joking all around you, but you might not be connected with them. If you're not connected with them psychologically, you'll be lonely, right? And that can build over time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it might be that you've been disappointed, experience of life, you know, and the way you have sized yourself up, you have inferiority complex, all of that, and that can make you lonely. Also, you feel you don't qualify or you don't measure up to the people around you, right? So you
Right.
don't willing to step out and relate, right?
Right.
Also, if you're lonely and you start talking yourself down, it will affect your personality. When you will have your head bent down most of the time, and you will not be able to live boldly because you're probably not feeling you don't measure up. So they can affect one another, from either side. But we need to check it because uh, it's not good for us physically, psychologically, or spiritually. The
Right.
Bible says that the Lord is our lift up of our head. It's our glory and the lift up of our head. And that's the posture we need to take, knowing that God is our glory and the lift up of our head. So we're supposed to walk like people that own the world, you know, and be open to relate to people because they are God's creation, and in them is God's image and likeness, right?
Right.
So do a quick look at 5 things that affect our personality, right? And this also could affect whether we become lonely or not. When we describe someone's personality, there are 5 main traits that we use to define personality psychologically. There are these are what we call big traits or big eaters. They are lower level definitions of personality, but at the topmost level psychologically, we look at 5 traits if you want to describe a person's personality. So the first one we talk about, in no particular order, it can be taken in any order, really. There's no number one, but there are just 5 of them. The first one is a word we call neuroticism, right? Which is a measure of a person's uh, ability to control his or her emotions. That is how the person relates with stress, or how the person relates with the environment, or whether the person feels that the environment is distressing, threatening, or unsafe. But really, the summary is the control, the amount of lack of control the person has on his or her emotions. If you're not able to control your emotions, then you are said to be high neurotically, right? Which is also a measure of someone's madness, right? If you're not able to control your emotions, you are tending towards being mentally sick, right? So people with a high neuroticism tend to, or at the borderline, they can easily get depressed. They can easily go into mental sickness, right? Because if you're not able to control your emotions, that means you respond easily to anything that excites you. They say that you hear bomb sound and you're already jumping out, right? As against someone that hears it but still keeps the emotion under check, is able to ask questions. The Bible says that a person that doesn't have self-control is like a city without walls. So
Mm-hmm.
when your neuroticism is high, you're like a city without walls. Almost everything affects you, right? So people with high neuroticism tend to be people that are easily susceptible to depression and susceptible to mental sickness, and all that comes with it. Uh, the other thing is extraversion or extroversion. Popularly in psychology, they use the A rather than the O, but they mean the same thing. It's talking about whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. It's talking about where you get your energy from, whether you get your energy from outside with people or inside alone, right? It's talking
Right.
about the degree to which you are sociable, you can relate, you can flow in a social setting, the ease with which you interact and talk with people, and the ease with which you can get excited, and excitement is contagious, meaning that you're excited, you're able to excite other people. Other people are excited, you're excited. Your emotions are able to flow in a communal setting. That's another thing that would describe a person's personality. So going to the first one, obviously, if you're all too emotional, you'll probably have issues relating with people, because people are always going to step on your nerves. People are going to have a tendency of offending you. So if you are someone that cannot control your emotions, you're probably going to have problems in a social setting. If you're someone that's extroverted, yes, then you're probably able to relate to people. At least from a social standpoint, you'll tend not to be lonely because you'll be a people person per se. Uh, in introversion, you can also be a people person. It just depends. Again, it's though we're talking about these traits, they don't have to control you, right? You can have a tendency, but knowing better with your knowledge, you can be able to manage it, right? So even though we talk about these traits, they are talking about a tendency in a person. With your knowledge of it, you can also use it. It doesn't have to use you, you can use it. The next trait that we use in defining personality is called agreeableness. It's just the degree or the tendency for you to agree with other people. Right? You have people that are just fighting people. They find fault in every single thing. Those people are low in agreeableness. But you find people that easily to agree. They don't even read the document before they agree, right? So it's just an attribute whereby you believe in other people. You love people enough to be able to, um, you see the good in people rather than the bad in people. You are easily agreeable. You are friendly. You are honest. Be sympathetic, cooperate with people. You are easily given to being warm and considerate of people, right? You see, if you're all of this, you will tend not to be lonely because you will step out to relate with people, and you also have your hands open for people to come and relate with you. The fourth attribute of personality is called conscientiousness. That's the extent to which you put your heart to what you are doing, right? You're not a haphazard person. If you're high on conscientiousness, then you're someone that puts your heart to everything that you do. You are one that crosses the T, dots the I, make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. You're not just taking things lightly or for granted, right? And the
Mhm.
last is talking about openness, how open you are in allowing people into your space. Whether you are an open person or you are a secretive person, you are don't let them know, don't let them know. Oh, this. All of that tells of the kind of person you are. And there are tests, that run that people can use to. You can answer those, and it will tell you what percentage you fall on any of these five attributes, just to help you understand who you are as a person. And it's just your tendency, so you know where to work on. So um, and about lastly, I was going to look at what we'll call four determinants of your disposition to life, right? uh, every one of us has a disposition to life. We have a disposition to what you will do or not do in every circumstance of life. And in psychology, we say there are four things that determine what you will typically be disposed to doing in life. And those four things are: number one, where your locus of control is. The word locus is the word center. So it's saying, where is your control room? What controls your life? The plane that controls your life, where is it based on? Is it inside of you or outside of you? Right? Some people are controlled by the weather. They are controlled by news. They are controlled by the government, the circumstances around them, right? Then those people are said to have an external locus of control. Their center of control is outside of them. They are controlled by the things happening outside of them, all around them. The other one is what we call the internal locus of control. Those are people that have the control inside of them. They believe that they determine what happens to them. They give the definition to things happening around them. They are not slaves to things happening around them. They determine how the things happening around them will impact them, right? So depending on who you are, right, whether you're an internal locus of control, external, will determine how you relate with anything that happens around you, right? And that will determine whether you have a tendency to be lonely or to relate with other people, right? The next one is a repetition. This is